Data entry is one of the most highly demanded tasks and also one of the most hated office tasks. Imagine going through thousands of paper applications and manually typing the information into Google Sheets one by one, which would be an extremely tedious job. In this Python project, you will learn how to create an AI agent to simplify data entry tasks using Ollama and Python. If you have never used Ollama before, Ollama is a platform for hosting local large language models. You can also use other AI model providers like OpenAI or Claude. I use Ollama because it is free. Throughout this tutorial, I will go through every single step, from setting up Python in Google Cloud environments to walking through the entire code base. The only prerequisite is that you download Ollama from ollama.com before diving into the tutorial. Now, I want to give you a demo of the Google Sheets data entry AI agent before we start the tutorial. In the Google Sheets, my table has 3 columns: first name, last name, and age. To perform the data entry task, I can simply type a name and a number for the age value. The AI agent is intelligent enough to recognize that Jia is the first name, Jenn is the last name, and 51 is the age, and it will populate a new entry with the correct information in the table. Because we are using an LLM to perform the data entry task, we can supply the information in any format we want. And when we are finished, we can type exit to terminate the program. A very fun project if you want to learn how to incorporate AI models with third-party APIs. Now let's dive into the tutorial. To get started, let's create a Python virtual environment first to minimize conflicts among packages from different projects. Launch a terminal and run the command python-m, venv, followed by the Python virtual environment name. Once the Python virtual environment is created, cd into the directory and activate the environment. Now let's install the Python dependencies. To use Google Sheets API, run the pip command from Google Sheets API documentation page. And to use Ollama's API, run the command pip install Ollama. Now that we've finished setting up the Python environment, let's move on to configuring the necessary components in Google Cloud. Let's set up the necessary components in Google Cloud to start using the Google Sheets API in Python. If you don't have a Google Cloud account, simply create one. It's completely free. The Google Sheets API is also free and offers unlimited usage. Navigate to console.cloud.google.com. Go ahead, create a new project if you don't already have one. Give your cloud project a name and click Create. Once project is created, click Select Project. Now we need to create an OAuth consent screen. You can skip this step if you already have a consent screen created. Each project will only have one OAuth consent screen, so keep that in mind. Under APIs and Services, click OAuth consent screen. For the user type, choose External. Click Create. In the app name field, type the app name showing on the consent screen. Then fill out remaining required fields like support email and developer email. App logo and app domain are optional, unless you intend to publish your app publicly. Once you fill out everything, click Save and Continue. Click Save and Continue to skip the Scopes step. We will add the scope in the Python script. Click Add Users and add the user's email you want to grant permission to use the app. Click Save and Continue to finish up setting up the OAuth consent screen. Review the information and click Back to Dashboard. Once we have created an OAuth consent screen, we can create an OAuth client account, which is used to authenticate and authorize your application to access Google APIs on behalf of users. Under APIs and Services, click Credentials. On the top, click Create Credentials and choose OAuth Client ID. For the application type, choose Desktop App, then give the OAuth account a name and click Create. On the OAuth client detail page, click Download JSON and save the client file as clientsecret.json in your project folder. The last step is to enable Google Sheets API. Under APIs and Services, click Library. Navigate to Google Sheets API and enable the API. We are officially done setting up everything in Google Cloud. We can now start with the script development to build the AI agent. Before you start the script development, make sure you have launched the Ollama server. If you haven't installed Ollama yet, visit ollama.com and download the software. To power up the AI agent, I will be using Llama 3.18b model, a very powerful general-purpose AI model created by Meta. To download the model, run the command Ollama pull, followed by the model ID, Llama 3.18b. Now create a blank Google spreadsheet and launch your code editor. To simplify connecting to Google APIs, create a Python file called googleapi.py. This module will contain a function to construct Google API service instances for services like Google Sheets, Gmail, YouTube, and others. Inside the Google APIs module, import the Python libraries shown on the screen. Then create a function called createService with parameters client secret file, API name, API version, scope, and prefix. When working with Google APIs, the steps to connect to an API endpoint are exactly the same. The only differences are the API name, API version, and scopes for the API you want to connect. Here's what the code block does. It checks if the token files directory exists. If not, it creates the directory. It then checks if a token file is available. If so, it loads the token file to refresh the access token, allowing users to skip the authentication steps. If no token file is available, it prompts users to go through the authentication process to grant permission to the app and save the session token into the token file. You can think it as the flow to generate an access token to connect to an API endpoint. Once an access token is generated, we will store the token into the credential variable. To connect to a Google API, use the build function to construct the API client and provide the API name, API version, credential object, and set static discovery to false. Now save the Google API module and create a Python file called app.py. The app file will serve as the starting point for the program execution. In the file, import JSON, Ollama, and createService from Google APIs. To connect to Google Sheets API, create a function called constructSheetsService. In the function, define the required properties for connecting to Google Sheets API, then return the client instance from the createService function. To add a new entry to the Google Sheet, create a function called addSheetEntry with parameters service, spreadsheet ID, first name, last name, age. You will need to adjust the parameters accordingly based on your table structure. In the addSheetEntry function, create the range variable to define the column used to detect the last row in the table. This column needs to be a required field to accurately determine the last row number. Then retrieve the values in column B to determine the last row using the len function. Once we determine the last row number in the target table, we'll create a list containing the values to be added. We'll then wrap these values in another list to match the expected format for row insertion. To add the entry to the target table in Google Sheets, use the update method from the Google Sheets service instance, providing the Google Sheets ID, table range, value input type, and request containing the values to be inserted. Once the entry is added in Google Sheets, return the API response. To enable the AI model to use the add sheet entry function, we need to provide a description of the function. Create a function called add sheet entry tool. In the function, return the add sheet entry function's description in a dictionary object format. To ensure the AI agent responds with the correct output, create a function called system prompt. In the function, write the system prompt in string format to instruct how the AI agent will behave. Now, to run the AI agent, create a function called run. Inside the function, define the AI model ID to Llama 3.1. Create an instance of Ollama client and create a variable to store the target Google Sheets ID. You can switch to a different AU model by changing the ID, as long as the target model supports function calling. To connect to Google Sheets API, call the construct Sheets service and save the client instance as service. Before we launch the AI agent, create a messages list and add a new record with role as system and set the content as the system prompt. Now insert a while loop with the condition set to true to keep the program running indefinitely. Inside the while loop, use the input function to store the user's input for the data entry task. If the user types exit as input value, then we want to terminate the session with a message goodbye. After the user enters an entry, add the input to the messages list. Then send the chat request to Ollama using the chat method. In this method, provide the model ID, messages, and definitions of the functions the AI agent will have access to. Once we get a response back from the AI agent, add the agent's response to the message. Because we are working with a large language model, key response might not always be what we expect. Insert an if statement to check if the model used the add sheet entry function by checking if the tool calls key is presented. If it's not present, we'll simply print a message with the reasoning and return to the beginning of the loop. If tool calls key is presented, we want to process the function calls made by the model. First, create a dictionary to map the function name to the actual function. Then iterate over each tool call in the tool calls list. Get the name of the function to be called from the tool call dictionary. Retrieve the actual function object from the available functions dictionary. Extract the arguments provided in the tool call dictionary and call the function with the provided arguments along with the service and spreadsheet ID. From the function to call function, store the response into an object and add a tool message indicating the entry was added successfully. Then send this tool response to the AI agent to generate a final response for the user. Once the AI agent processes the tool response and generates the final response, add it to the messages list, print it for the user, and return to the beginning of the loop. In the last line, call the run function to start the program. Save the file and run the script. The first time when you run the script, it will prompt you to sign in to your account. Click Continue. Click Continue to grant the required Google Sheets permissions to the app. When you finished authenticating the app, you'll notice a new folder called Token Files has been created. This folder contains the token file with your session token. If you need to switch to a different account, simply delete the token file. and go through the authentication process again. Now let's test the program to see it works. Here I will type my name and a number to represent the age value. Once the AI agent added the entry to the Google Sheets, it replies with entry added. You can input the information in various formats, and the AI agent will successfully add the entries to Google Sheets. Finally, type exit to terminate the program. That concludes this how to automate data entry with AI agent using Python and Ollama tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and find the video useful. The source code is in the description. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more tutorials like this. Happy coding! See you in the next one.